And that's going to test your mindset the hardest is when you hit that ground zero. And
Yeah.
we've all seen the stories of the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk where they were at nothing and they're in a little small shack kind of putting their business together, and that's what you got to get back to. And that's what a lot of agents I feel like lack in the beginning is just having that set schedule to where it's like I'm consistently working on bringing in leads but also still working on what I have now.
So Dimitri, for those who don't know you, give us a quick 30-second overview of who you are.
Yeah, so I've been doing real estate for 6 years now, and then property management 6 years before that. Came in doing lead generation. So a buddy of mine and I, we went and started a company just essentially cold calling and setting appointments for agents and brokerages. And after doing that for some time, I was like, I think I could do this whole thing on my own and go the full route of getting the lead and facilitating the transaction. So ended up coming back to Virginia and getting into real estate full time, partnered with the Gillis team, and everything from there has just been a bit of a fast paced roller coaster ride, and we've been rocking and rolling.
So before people knew you as a top producer, and you were behind the scenes in the lead generation, what is something that this taught you that most agents don't really know about this business?
Yeah. Two of the big takeaways, starting off in the lead generation and getting into full-time agent. Number one probably would be just being comfortable being a problem solver, or finding the resources to be that problem solver is probably 90% of the job. The other thing is if you can change your own perspective, you can do really big things. There's a lot of rejection in this industry, and especially in that lead generation and in the portion I was doing with cold calling and, not the most traditionally, they got social media, a few different avenues, but, if you can change your perspective, I was at a point where I was making probably a couple thousand phone calls a day. And then, like I said, a lot of rejection there. So some people take that rejection and have it negatively impact them, but I had to kind of flip the perspective and the ideology, instead of saying, okay, I got hung up on, or somebody just, had a decent conversation but didn't want to move forward. I look at that as, all right, that's one down to get to the one no down to get to the yes. So having that change in mentality, it just goes a long way.
Now, as I'm hearing it, I'm like, do agents really overthink cold calling?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of kind of self-doubt and self-preservation where it's like I feel like people get in their heads more than they need to. And even when I joined the team, there was a portion where newer agents would come and just sit in the room while I prospect and just kind of hear how you go through those conversations. And you got to find a way to make it fun. Like I said, some people get that rejection, they just kind of beat themselves up a bit, but and kind of got to let it roll off your back and get on and move to the next call. And that could be the one that gets you a lead. But, if you get the negative mindset, you walk away from that next call and you don't make it, then you miss an opportunity.
Now, once you started this, at what point did your mindset shift?
Yes, it's definitely not instant. It took probably a good like 4 months before it kind of clicked. And I was like, I think I'm more of my own roadblock than these leads and these people are. So it does take some time, and it takes a little bit of looking in the mirror and self-reflection of, all right, let me get out of my comfort zone, do something different. Most people coming into the industry don't realize what that back end footwork looks like. It's like, oh, I'll get my license and people just come to me and start wanting to buy and sell houses. But you got to have those conversations. You got to inquire new leads. It's not all just SOI or word of mouth. You got to buy leads or go out there and hit the streets, knocking on doors or cold calling. So yeah,
But it's the consistency.
It's the consistency and keeping that
consistency.
positive mindset and not quitting, not letting go of it. Because I also see agents that come in, they maybe hit the ground running the first month or two, and then it just kind of fizzles out. But you got to just stay dedicated and stay down with it. Yeah.
Dimitri, let me ask you, what was your aha moment that you realized that after doing this lead generation for other agents, you said, I can do this?
Yeah. So after a certain point, we really developed that skill. Um, it kind of you get into a rhythm. And once I really got in that rhythm, there was one point where we had, 4 clients and brokers we were working with, and we're managing them and their database, and then, cold calling for their, sold listings or just listed listings. And when I started realizing, like, hey, I'm setting like, 3 or 4 appointments a day for these other folks. And, maybe a year into it, when I really caught that rhythm, I was like, I think there's going to be a near future where I start to go the other route, because
Okay.
there's definitely opportunity in lead management, lead generation. That particular line that I was in, it does get old after a while. And there's a point where you're like, all right, I've seen how I can do it. Let's take it to the next level.
Take it to the next
Yeah.
level. So, how did having a lead generation agency give you an edge as becoming a realtor?
Yeah, so getting in there and seeing some behind the scenes because I was newly licensed when I got into doing the lead generation, and it's almost just like learning how to be a host at a restaurant. You kind of learn the beginning of it, you get good at that, and you go to the next portion of it. So I was able to see kind of what other experienced agents were doing. They've been doing it for decades, years, seeing how they operated, how their systems work, and then being able to assist and plug into that system, kind of help them get to the next level. All that really just it's just what you soak up in that time, and now you can kind of remix and make it your own to apply to your business. And essentially is exactly what I did coming up and joining the team, is just taking what I learned and kind of soaked up there, take it and made it my own, and apply that with the team. And then that's, once you learn something, you have that forever. It's like
Yeah,
getting a college degree.
yes, 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 definitely. As a top producer, let me ask you, what does consistency look like to you?
Yeah, so having a regiment, that's probably number one. When you get into a rhythm, it's hard to stop. So for me, I'm an early guy. I like to get up early. Like if I'm going to do a workout, it's going to be first thing in the morning. So if you set the day off on the right tone, if you got to get in there, 5, 6 in the morning, it's what you got to do. And then just having an idea of what your day is going to look like. So early on, when I maybe didn't have a lot of clients I'm running around with, it was a pretty set schedule of, okay, get up, we're gonna do a workout of some sort, get ready for work. And then it's going to be 8 to 10 solid prospecting and just trying to get opportunities. Taking some time in the middle of the day, maybe to do some follow up with clients that you have starting to work with, maybe some training, some mentoring opportunities with your team lead, and then just rolling right back into prospecting later on to cap out the day. And that's what a lot of agents I feel like lack in the beginning, is just having that set schedule to where it's like I'm consistently working on bringing in leads, but also still working on what I have now. And consistency doesn't also have to be just 100% work. Be consistent in giving yourself some grace, giving yourself time off, take a vacation if you need to, take a weekend if you need to, but still having those parameters in place to where you know what your day is going to look like for the most part, and ultimately reach and achieve your goals from there.
So it seems like you give yourself some grace and you have some non-negotiables. So also giving yourself some time, right?
100%. Yeah. Cause you can't pour from an empty glass. So if you're running low, you're running out of gas, you got to fill yourself up. And sometimes that's taking a little break, taking a weekend, getting with family, grounding yourself with your loved ones and what makes you happy. Cause you can definitely find yourself in a circle of just working 24/7 in real estate, especially when you're trying to reach
Certain
really
goals.
ambitious, lofty goals. So you have to also give yourself that same grace.
So coming from a lead generation business, what is a key component that agents are missing from converting that lead to building a relationship with these clients?
Yeah, it may sound cliche, but active listening is probably like the number one thing, because I've even been on, after working the phones for so many years and being on the other end, if someone calls me with, business opportunity or what it may be, or sales pitch, and you give someone information, you want to know that they're actually listening and digesting that so they can best help your situation. Because, we're not, people kind of look at real estate sometimes as like sales. You don't have to be so salesy. You can be a person at the end of the day. People are going to gravitate towards people they feel comfortable with. So you're a person too. You're not just a script in a cold calling list. You want to try to find ways to build rapport, find some kind of a connection, some relation. Not maybe lean into it to where it makes things uncomfortable, but say, hey, look, I can relate with you on this, and people appreciate that. And then just also being well versed in your field is going to make them feel comfortable with you being the industry expert, and opens up that rapport even more. Because especially coming from like a cold calling perspective, they got a brick wall defense as soon as you get on the phone. But if we can chisel that down with a quick conversation about their kids may like soccer and you like soccer, you can connect on that for a sec, and then divert that conversation back to what the ultimate goal is, which is helping with them with their real estate goals.
Okay. So we know sometimes deals fall apart, right? So clients get emotional, they get unmotivated.
Yeah.
Now, what keeps you disciplined and keeps you in line to make sure to help these clients achieve what their goals are?
Yeah, when we see stuff like this every day, we get a little more numb to it with them. This is their first experience. So when that kind of letdown moment happens, you just got to be their rock. Like, hey, look, things happen. Maybe this just wasn't the right one for us. The next one, and that might be the perfect one. Maybe it has that one extra feature that you weren't looking for that you need. So really just being that foundation for them, staying positive. Some people, uh, if someone's being negative, it's easy to float right into that same negativity. But if you can be that, hey, look, like I said, this wasn't the one that worked out for us. The next one's gonna be the best one. That helps keep them motivated and keep them in the game. And yeah,
Yeah. And I think that having that mentality, that mindset it's crucial, it's critical with something like this because if they're a Debbie Downer, you can't be a Debbie Downer, right?
yeah,
It's
because then it'll
basically
never get happen.
it'll
It'll
never
never
get
get done.
happen. I don't know. You just gotta keep going.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's easy to kind of get down in the dumps, especially when you're making this kind of big decision. But you know, another big part of it's just kind of being like the emotional, maybe not punching bag, but emotional, foundation for them.
Emotional
Yeah.
foundation. And it's happened. And I mean, when I'm at the closing table, I always hear the stories. Oh, Dimitri, remember the other house we went to go see? Remember I didn't have this? Oh, but this house has this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yes.
so then you see the payoff, right? And so I
Yeah.
think it's great.
Yeah. I'll always say that things happen on time when they should.
That's
So if
true.
that one didn't work out, it just wasn't the right time.
It
Wasn't
wasn't
the
the right
right
time.
one.
Just gotta keep going.
100%.
And if that's basically goes back to your mindset is this no is gonna get me closer to that
To
yes,
that
right?
next
So
yes.
that rejection for that offer, it's gonna get us to the right one.
100%. And also sometimes clients don't really understand the market, and you can educate them and tell them as much, but there's only so much like that anecdotal experience of experience it and seeing it and learning it that way. So sometimes you gotta lose one to be like, all right, now I know how I need to get that next one.
Yeah. So looking at your journey, was there a moment that there was a setback that caused you to grow professionally, but also personally?
I got a pretty personal story. I don't know how deep we want to get into it, but um, so when I was in Florida with the lead generation company, I got in a really bad car accident. That was definitely like the lowest ground zero I've been in my life. So I, had to go through physical therapy. I rolled my car, messed my head up, back, and all these things. So the business, admittedly, took a downward turn. And that's where I had to kind of get back to my roots, come back home. Family was a huge, huge part of that. You're only as strong as your support system. And at that time, I didn't think that I had a support system, but Lord knows family will prevail when you need them to. So I was able to come back, get grounded, and really just had to reflect on my own where I want to go and how I want to get there. So when that business, uh, I ended up coming back home and doing real estate full time. Not completely different, but different enough. You're not just doing that lead
Yeah.
generation part; it's the other 95% of the job. So I really had to get in a place of let me humble myself, learn, get back to the drawing board. You don't know everything, and especially starting off kind of new in the position of being full time agent. So that car accident in that time, I thought it was all over. I was like, I don't think there's nothing's gonna succeed. Now I'm not gonna go anywhere from here. But again, back to the consistency, the mindset, and just keep on getting out of that hole. And there's always gonna be an end in sight, and you never know where it's gonna take you. It's easy to fall back and like, all right,
Let me just fall back to what is just so I'm so used to, right? Like I'm not gonna make it just because this happened to me. And I feel like it's one of those things that it's again, it might sound repetitive, but we always keep talking about this in real estate. It's a mindset. It's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, and that's going to test your mindset the hardest is when you hit that ground zero. And,
Yeah.
we've all seen the, stories of the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk where they were, had nothing and they're in a little small shack, kind of putting their business together. And that's what you got to get back to
This is where
sometimes,
to
just get
get
back
back
to your
to.
roots.
Yep. Just
Yeah.
get back to your roots. So what would today's Dimitri tell the Dimitri that first got licensed?
So don't quit. That's the one thing, because there's so many times where I've hit that roadblock and I was like, I don't know if this will work, but I just kept moving forward. And admittedly, life is better than I even thought it could have been. And there's still so much upward trajectory. So really, it's just locking into something and staying consistent, and back to the consistency again.
Back to consistency.
Yeah.
Back to those basics.
Yes, and just
Back to
don't give
basics.
up on yourself. If you get into the industry and you love it, you have a passion for it, don't give up on it, because there's going to be roadblocks. There's going to be people in the way that tell you it may not work, or all the horror stories. But you create your own story, and it can be a success story if you want it to be.
And it could be a beautiful one too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dimitri.
Yes, I appreciate your time.
It
Thank
was
you.
great having you.
Yes. Until next time.
Yeah.